In the last episode, we explored Bitchat, Twitter co founder Jack Dorsey's proclaimed weekend project. Today, we'll take that conversation forward by exploring the emerging world of offline mesh networking. We'll look at the bigger picture. What kind of changes could mesh networking bring to communication? If local communities had their own communication networks, what would that mean? Perhaps most intriguing question would be how would marketing and advertising work in a world where messages hop from device to device without central tracking? We'll also see if BitChat can catalyze a broader shift toward offline first communication, joining apps like LiveDrop. But first, let's talk about what happens when communication becomes truly peer to peer. In order to understand how BitChat could change communication, we have to think about what makes current messaging platforms work and what makes them unreliable. Every message you send through WhatsApp, iMessage, or Telegram goes through centralized servers. It makes it possible for companies behind these apps to read your metadata, track who you talk to and when, and even get your messages. In addition to this, governments also push these companies to either share data, set up servers in their country, or shut down completely. We have seen this happening in the EU, China, India, and recently in the US. Basically, this means that your ability to communicate depends on corporate infrastructure and government approval. BitChat flips this model completely. Your messages travel through a network of peers, real people with real devices physically present in the world. There is no single point of failure, no single company that can be hacked or shut down by governments. Mesh networks could enable direct communication, say at large events, bypassing overloaded cell towers. Attendees could share updates, coordinate meetups, and stay connected even when traditional networks fail. But the novelty of mesh networks goes beyond resilience. Using mesh networking could open up completely new forms of communication. Since messages travel through physical space, they are inherently location aware. This approach of tracing the path of the message hops creates a unique identity. I'll explain this in simple terms. When you use a messaging app, have you thought how the message travels from your device to the recipient's device? When you hit that send button, the message goes from your phone to the nearest cell tower to the internet to the server behind the messaging app to the internet again to another cell tower and ultimately to the recipient's phone. This path is invisible to you and largely fixed. Mesh network tech completely changes it. It hops from device to device through a physical space. If you live in a big city, a message from your phone would hop to a tourist's phone, to the phone of a person working in a retail shop, to a street vendor's phone, to an office worker's phone, and finally reaching the recipient's phone. This path would be much smaller in a town or village. When your message hops from phone to phone, each device that helps relay it leaves a tiny digital fingerprint on the message. This fingerprint would reveal how many devices your message passed through, estimated time when it passed through each one, and the general shape of the journey, which means whether it hopped quickly many times or slowly few times. What it won't reveal is names of people whose devices were used, phone numbers, personal information, and their exact GPS coordinates. This fingerprint or pattern of hops reveals location without revealing personal identity. This means that the path taken by the message from the sender to the recipient develops a unique identity. The same way you can identify a wine by its vintage and region, not because you know the grapes or who grew them, but because of the combination of conditions. As a result, your message becomes recognizable as the one that traveled through the downtown or the one from the campus area, not because anyone's personal information was exposed, but because it traveled in a distinctive pattern. By using this, you can send spatially aware messages that aren't tagged with GPS but by their route. This brings us to one of the most exciting implications of mesh networking, its potential to revitalize local communities. We keep hearing about how the internet has both connected and isolated us. We can talk to people on the other side of the world, but we often don't know our neighbors. We are part of global communities but disconnected from local ones. Mesh networking could reverse this trend by making physical proximity valuable again. In a mesh network, the people closest to you aren't just your neighbors, they are your communication infrastructure. This creates natural incentives for community building and cooperation. Imagine a neighborhood where everyone runs mesh networking apps. Local businesses could broadcast daily specials directly to residents' phones. Community organizers could coordinate events without relying on Facebook or other centralized platforms. Parents could create private networks for coordinating school activities. The possibilities are endless. Mesh networks could offer free community run communication in areas with limited or costly internet access. When communication breaks down during natural disasters, they can help improve disaster preparedness. Now, let's talk about the question that's probably on every marketer's mind. How would advertising work in a mesh network? Almost all digital advertising is built on centralized platforms that track users, collect data, and serve targeted ads. The mesh network breaks this model. Companies like Google and Meta act as intermediaries between advertisers and consumers in traditional online advertising. Then they sell access to specific audience segments based on user behavior, preferences, and demographics. In a mesh network, messages hop from device to device, so nobody knows who's talking to whom. This could force a return to more traditional location based advertising models. In place of, say, males aged 24 to 34 interested in fitness, advertisers might target people living in South Mumbai or attendees at Coachella. The focus would shift from behavioral targeting to geographical and contextual targeting. Mesh networking would fit very well with personal devices like AR glasses and smartwatches. Since it captures approximate time of message hops, it could become very effective for real time or time sensitive offers. The traceable path of the message would make user journey mapping much better. This is something that marketers have been struggling with for the past few years. Of course, all of this depends on mass adoption, and there are significant challenges that could prevent mesh networking from going mainstream. First, there's a network effect problem. Mesh networks are only useful if lots of people use them, but people won't use them unless they're already useful. There's a chicken and egg problem here that's hard to solve. Some early adopters might find themselves with a cool app that doesn't work. Another big concern is battery life. Mesh networking uses a lot more power than traditional messaging apps because devices have to constantly check for other devices and relay messages. For mesh networking to work, it needs to be efficient enough that people are willing to sacrifice battery life for the benefits. Even though Bitchat uses Bluetooth low energy mesh tech, your phone battery will still be drained. Then there's a user experience challenge. Users expect instant global communication from traditional messaging apps. Regardless of where the recipient is, your message gets there right away. By contrast, mesh networking is inherently local and can be slower. Messages might take a while to hop through the network, and some might never get there if the path breaks. This might amplify the user journey mapping challenge. Concerns about privacy and security are also big barriers. Mesh networking can be more secure than centralized alternatives, but it requires trust between neighbors. Bitchat's recent security vulnerabilities show how hard it is to build truly secure decentralized systems. There's also the issue of content moderation. A centralized platform lets companies remove harmful content, ban abusive users, and implement safety features. In a decentralized mesh network, how do you deal with spam, harassment, and illegal content? Marketing today has become so much about demand generation. Over time, digital advertising has become very good at creating demand, reaching people who have no idea what they want. How will apps like Bitchat enable demand generation? Think of a luxury resort that wants to target high net worth individuals to book with them. Meta or Google would quickly allow them to target such people based on travel history, browsing behavior, etc. The current form of mesh network tech doesn't seem to allow for targeting based on behavior, demographics, or even intent. Since it is hyperlocal in nature, it will be hard to scale the ads for nationwide campaigns. So, businesses like B2B SaaS who need to reach decision makers across multiple companies or locations, e commerce brands, luxury brands, or service businesses like online coaches or consultants would struggle to promote through this tech. BitChat highlights a potential future where digital advertising could fundamentally be disrupted. Meshed networking could take down the three pillars of digital advertising: behavioral tracking, demographic targeting, and centralized distribution. Businesses would face a dramatic shift if apps like BitChat become mainstream, having lesser ability to run global campaigns or target specific customers. There would be a shift to local, community focused marketing strategies, prioritizing physical presence and relevance in real time. A shift like this could be good for local businesses and challenging for those reliant on global data driven ads. Mesh networks could shift marketing control from global platforms to local businesses. Instead of Meta, Google, and algorithmic auctions, it lets you talk directly to local customers. This could lead to new marketing disciplines that focus on local influence, community engagement, and geographic relevance. Through BitChat or similar technologies, offline first systems could mean the decline of data driven, behavior targeted marketing, pushing marketing to focus on serving local communities. The next few years will be crucial for this tech. If developers can figure out the technical challenges, communities embrace the technology, and the regulatory environment stays favorable, we could see a parallel communication infrastructure that's more democratic and resilient. Mesh networking could revolutionize marketing, requiring a complete rebuild of tools and strategies. Local dynamics and community engagement would be the focus of new roles such as community network managers, proximity marketing specialists, and location context strategists. Monitoring mesh networks and local sentiment analysis could gain more attention than platforms like Facebook Ads Manager. Budgets would shift from global digital campaigns to local events and partnerships with mesh network hubs. The marketing would become hyperlocal, personal, and community based, but with limited reach. CMOs might have to choose between global campaigns or hyperlocal, deeply engaging strategies. A hybrid landscape combining global reach with local relevance and new metrics of community value could replace traditional metrics used today. That's all for this two-part exploration of BitChat and the future of offline communication. If you enjoyed this series, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with friends who might be interested in the future of technology and communication and how it could change marketing. Until the next episode, keep exploring.